Welcome into the Loochador Podcast here on Selection Monday as A&M finds out they're going to the Stanford Regional. Looking forward to chatting about that with Billy Liucci and Ryan Brauninger. But before we do that, thanks to our friends at Academy Sports and Outdoors for bringing us this awesome podcast. They want you to make sure you – yes, sir.
I'm saying I think I have a trip to Academy scheduled for tomorrow.
Get barbecue stuff there, hunting stuff, soccer equipment.
Billy won't be buying any of those three.
Baseball bats.
I'm going –
that either.
Fungo.
I might go buy a glove, Bronny. I might go buy a mitt.
You can. If you need a glove, you can go to Academy.
I might start throwing again.
Aggie baseball cap, probably there too.
I might start warming up.
I might go buy – you can go buy a Fungo and you learn how to hit it instead of hitting me in the stomach with it.
I don't need to do that because I just can swing from here to there and get your stomach.
He did do that one time. Right on my hernia.
That's not good. You've been hurt a few times.
Well, by him.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
But one on purpose, but should have never hurt him. The second one was accidental.
Well, that's why he doesn't feel guilty about sending me to Stanford.
Are you looking forward to that trip?
Payback.
I've not been to Northern California. When I was really little, we went to San Francisco, but I was so small I barely remember it. So I haven't been to that area.
It's changed.
I haven't been to that area of the country. Well, I wouldn't even remember what it was like then. I've heard it's really pretty, but I don't know anything about topography-wise. I know it's really pretty.
You want to hear something pretty surprising? I asked Slosh if he'd ever been up there, and he said no, never been to Stanford.
Really?
For as long as he's been coaching baseball and to have been a head coach at UNLV, you would have thought, obviously Stanford wasn't going to come play at UNLV. You'd have thought somewhere along the way, and as good as TCU's been, boy, would that sound like a spicy little March non-conference series, but never. I was surprised to hear that.
So what do we think?
What the hell?
People are what's wrong? You want to go higher?
Yeah, you got in the chair like
I sit like this.
Well,
every
he's
time.
posture Nuño. After we fired Logan, now he's posture.
Yeah,
he's
like
got the best
damn
posture.
giraffe over here.
So,
Stanford,
3 Bay Area schools.
Cal State, Fullerton, and San Jose. Between Stanford and Fullerton, probably 2 of the top 20 baseball programs, maybe 15 of all time. Probably 20.
It's 2 of the – you'd have to add Oregon State to the list on the West Coast. UCLA's had their runs and USC too, but 2 of the elite schools out west, no question about it. And then an upstart San Jose State group that I don't know a lot about, but if you listen to the guys talking the selection show, they're like that's not that easy of a draw as a 4 seed for the 1. So A&M is going to stick out, I think, out there for a couple of reasons. Number one, the physicality. I think A&M is going to be the biggest team out there. Again, I haven't done a lot of roster research, but also the way the SEC plays ball. I think this is actually kind of a brutal sin because you just spent so many days away from home playing slugfest, boxing matches, just trading punches with the elite of college baseball. And now you're going halfway across the country. They'll probably have to fly out a day earlier than they would have if it would have been a Stillwater or, even a Wake Forest or a Coral Gables or something like that. You'll have to fly out a day earlier to get the time change and get accustomed to that. And then you're also going to be playing West Coast baseball, which is different.
That's what I was going to ask you. Explain to us the difference because, first explain to us the difference. And I've done a little looking at Stanford, and it was kind of eye-opening.
Well, Stanford, first of all, extremely offensive.
Yeah.
Their numbers are sensationally good. I think their number 1 player was the Pac-12 Player of the Year. Their top guy, Alberto Rios, hit over 400 with almost 20 homers. They've hit over 100 homers as a team. Now, what is that a combination of? They've got really good players, clearly. You're not a national seed without having good players. But also, I think the ballpark's pretty offensive. I think the pitching out there is not what A&M sees week in, week out. In fact, we know that it's not week in and week out. But I also think that it's Billy, and you can look at this too. Look what we're seeing, what's happening in California and in college football, how much of those top players are leaving the state and going other places. I think it's happening to a certain extent in baseball. But if you look at the major leagues and the history of, amateur baseball in the United States of America, California is probably the best baseball playing state. So it's not like they're without talent, but a lot of the top-end talent, the depth of the talent, is leaving and going other places. So,
but is it leaving Stanford?
Right, that's what I'm saying. So Stanford has really good players.
About who they play
so
against.
Maybe the schedule that they're playing out there is a little watered down. 2 of A&M's best players are from that area of the country, and Jack and Hunter. So I don't know. There's a combination. They're very, very good. They're very, very talented, but it's an offensive ballpark. And West Coast baseball is typically played on the ground more.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more bunting, hit and running. They want to steal. It's just not as power and like sexy as SEC baseball. Typically, it's a different brand. They're going to do.
Stanford was very competitive in last year's World Series, right?
Yeah,
like they were in that other bracket. They were. Was it Arkansas? They were really competitive, at least in one. I think they may have even gone 2-1. They may have won a game. I'm not positive, but.
So how does their pitching staff match up with our
bats? I haven't looked at the totality of it. They got one kid I think he's over 100 strikeouts and like 20-something walks. But I haven't sat down and looked at the numbers on the pitching side. Offensively, I know Stanford is extremely physical, and they're also very athletic. But I was actually texting with Kendall Rogers last night. You go and start looking at Stanford's schedule. There's some blemishes. There's not as many blemishes as A&M's got. A&M has the couple of sweeps, but that's, it's Arkansas and Tennessee.
You want to talk about Stanford offensively, and I agree. You look at their scores, and there's several games where
there are games where they're
20-plus runs.
But they're giving up double-digit runs.
Exactly. There's a lot of games. There's multiple games, I think, where they've given up 20-plus themselves.
Their team ERA is over 5.
Yeah, like they get clubbed around some too, but yeah, obviously they're a very dangerous offensive
They're
team.
the best team on the West Coast. They've been the best team on the West Coast wire to wire.
I'm looking at Fullerton, guys.
Okay.
Because that's who A&M's playing.
Yeah.
So they play first.
We know their history. We know they're not what they used to be, but we know that's a damn good baseball program. You want to know who they've beaten this year?
Please.
They folks down the road.
They lost 2 out of 3, but they won 1 against Stanford. They won 2 out of 3 against Texas.
Lost 2 out of 3 to TCU.
They beat TCU 1, lost 2. They beat Texas 2 out of 3.
They lost to Stanford, looks 2 out of 3. Sorry, just reading out loud. You're talking.
So am I, and so I'm looking at it. Go ahead, David.
No.
He also already said Stanford.
That's what I said. I missed it.
Oh.
I'm just looking at names.
I'm just reading as I go.
I'm just looking at name teams. They beat.
What'd they do against?
They scored 15 in the win over UCLA.
Midweek, yeah.
They lost to Santa Barbara 14-zip. Came back and won that series. They split with USC. They split with UCLA. Won 2 out of 3 against Texas. Lost 2 out of 3 to TCU, like Bronny said. I mean, those are the ones that kind of stand out to you. And by the way, the TCU one, that was that weird Big 12 series, that they do late in the year.
Well, it's a couple things to note too on the A&M roster.
Fullerton.
Okay, with guys and playing out west. Nate Yeske, tons of experience out west. Michael Early, some experience out west.
And a couple players.
And then Carson Lambert at USC. But, I mean, I'm sure Jim Schlossnagle's been on the phone whenever he found out. I bet he's talked to Troy Claunch, right? And I bet he's probably talked to Cole Kaler a little bit.
How about
Jacob Polish. Yeah. So, there are some connections, and A&M's got some stuff that they can rely upon in terms of getting a better feel for what's going to be kind of – they're going further than, out of all the teams that were in the region, in this region, in the Southeast, A&M was the one that plucked and had to go out west. So, they're the outlier out there.
Hey, this is tough regional. We all know
Absolutely,
that.
Yeah.
Stanford's a better program than A&M historically and in recent seasons. They weren't better last year. I don't know. We're going to find out who's better this year. You got 2 really significant unknowns at the top there, because is A&M going to continue to play the type baseball they brought with them to Hoover? Because if the answer is yes, then Stanford got the toughest 2 seed in this thing. We don't know that, though. We feel good about it.
55 games that would
say otherwise.
Yeah.
But I feel good about it, but we don't know it. So A&M's a great unknown here. Stanford's a great unknown because, like you said, they haven't played really anybody.
There were some teams out there that got hot and then just faded. Like UCLA at one point was top 12 in the country. Yeah. Just faded off.
USC they haven't played anybody compared to teams in the South.
Arizona State was in the top. At one point, Arizona State, they were talking about hosting. They didn't even make the tournament, did they?
Arizona State?
I don't think they got in, did they?
Arizona did. I don't know about Arizona State.
If Arizona did, I don't think Arizona State did.
Arizona did.
So, it was
as a 2 seed.
It fluctuated a lot out west, and Oregon won the tournament. So all those Pac-12 schools, the only one that got a host was Stanford, and the rest of them got sent as 2 seeds.
Here's what I was going to say. It is a really tough regional when you see it Stanford. And by the way, Texas State was within an out of getting out of there last year. It's certainly doable. Stanford's not. You're not going to play Wake Forest, and even though they're not, like, there are 4 SEC teams that might be favored in a super regional against Stanford, like head to head.
4?
Florida,
Arkansas, Vanderbilt,
LSU, and Vandy, and
Kentucky, Alabama,
Bama, and Auburn. But I mean, favored. I mean, I'm saying there are regionals that would have had a tougher 1 seed. I know A&M can't play the SEC, but I'm saying of the 16, even by seeding, Stanford's the 8th toughest regional. I think it's tough, but then my next comment would be, unless you're some dipshit Longhorn fan, what do you expect? They think they're going to – Miami and Louisiana are just a bunch of nothing out there in Coral Gables.
They're about to get – I think Louisiana's really good.
So – and I think Texas is a good team this year.
Yeah. Just
like I think A&M's a good team. Neither one is great, and when they're playing their best, damn, those are tough.
They can both go to Omaha.
Yeah, very tough too. But their fans think A&M got the toughest draw ever. Texas is going to cruise. Meanwhile, for the last 2 weeks, Texas has thought they're going to Stanford, and they've thought that was an easy regional. So you just can't win with these people. My point, though, is this. There's not an easy – there was one I saw where I go, that looks like
I thought
the
Bama got
one.
a pretty favorable draw.
Yeah, and there was one other, and I can't – my point, though, is last year A&M was in a much better position as the 1 seed, as a super regional host.
Tough.
And look at that draw. It played to I would say last year's draw is tougher than this year's if it all plays out. If you had to go through TCU, Louisiana, and Oral Roberts in your own region, and then get Louisville versus Stanford, Fullerton, San Jose, and Miami or Texas, I would say last year's path to Omaha was tougher with A&M being the 1 seed.
And I'll say this too. Going to Stanford in terms of atmosphere, remember what I said on the radio today that you asked me, how'd the pitch and turn around in Hoover? And I said, I don't know. Like, there's no real answer for that, but it could have been that they started playing these middle-of-the-day games with nobody in the ballpark, and there was not a lot of stress in it. It was like they're out there playing summer ball.
How will it be there?
And so the atmosphere could be similar in Stanford. I don't know. I don't know how well Fullerton baseball fans travel. I know how well Aggie baseball fans will travel. I would bet there's as many Aggies there on Friday night against Fullerton as there will be Titan fans. I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. There's a chance. You're not going into some cauldron. Like Clemson's going to be rowdy.
Imagine going to Clemson and then
Wake Forest is going to be rowdy.
Let's say you go to Clemson and then had to go to Auburn even versus Stanford and Miami if that holds true. Now I think if A&M and Texas win, you talk about Ross Bjork and Chris Del Conte, there's going to be a bidding fest, and I don't want to. I'm not even going to say it unless we end up needing to see it. But A&M had better figure out how to win that battle, because I do think it comes down to a bid thing. There's going to be one really unhappy AD that has to answer a hell of a lot of questions to their constituents. So I hope we're not talking about that, because I hope A&M wins and Nuño starts lobbying to go to Coral Gables, but. It does set up. I couldn't
stand to be around him in Miami. You know how he would act.
I'd be working the whole time.
No. You know how you would walk around there.
How would I walk around?
Oh, yeah.
I'd be talking in Spanish.
Like your pit bull.
But no.
Oh, yeah.
But by the way, I'm like.
Well, I might drink a little more than I should.
I think I'm a little bit like you, though. I'm focusing on right now.
And I might
sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I got to be like a coach.
No, we don't. We're looking ahead, and imagine if Texas and A&M met in a super.
Well, there's something to be said. I think the NCAA, just like in the basketball tournament, same deal.
It's tired. I'm ready. I'm ready for it to be in the same conference. I do want them to play every year in football. I don't want this nonsensical 8-game Nick Saban, Greg Sankey-led schedule. I think it's pitiful. I think they'll kick the can down the road this week in Destin and kind of float that and see how. I don't know if they'll come to any decisions. Olin will be there to let us know. Scratching his head every step of the way.
Said he brought a Speedo.
Good luck. So let me ask you, if the A&M team that we saw during the conference season comes to Stanford, is that team good enough to win that? Or do we need the team that – I hope we get what we just saw.
The team that we just saw can go to Omaha.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the team that we saw
most of the year –
it's back to what we said.
Can they can win? I just don't think they're consistent enough to win a regional or a regional and a super, right? Like they're just not consistent enough.
But consistent enough to beat Stanford and Cal State?
Depending on the weekend you played.
Yeah.
That the team that won 2 out of 3 against Florida and almost swept them, or the team that won 1 against Bama and you thought they were rolling and they just got LaMallied. Which one?
The one that showed up in Knoxville?
Yeah.
Ain't winning this regional. The one that showed up in Fayetteville?
I'm even saying, though, in the last month, you have Fayetteville, you have Florida, you have Bama, you have Mississippi State, which they were that close to sweeping, also that close to losing the series. I think a regional would be the same way. From one night to the next, you wouldn't know what you were going to get. They could win their first 2, and then you see Stanford come storming back. But that team, like you said, that team that played this past week will be the best team in that regional, and that team that we saw this past week will be the best team in the super, whether it's Miami, Texas, or Louisiana.
Right.
We just don't know.
I think, man, if the pitching can – it doesn't have to be what it was in Hoover.
Yeah.
But if it hovers around that, I think there's some big numbers coming from the offense.
Well, you didn't get a lot out of Jace. Minnick, you didn't get anything out of until the Sunday.
Boast is starting to turn the best he's looked all year. Targot's the best he's looked all year. Werner's been fantastic since that trip to Fayetteville. And then Jack and Hunter have been great. And then and JT was pretty good.
Yeah.
JT was pretty good. And they've been really opportunistic.
I'm confident when JT comes up.
Yep.
I am.
And he is going to.
Same thing he did last year at this time.
If Jace, let's say Jace hits a homer in his first at bat of the regional, I would be willing to bet they are going to pitch around him as much as possible. And they said, okay, if the little guy beats us, the little guy beats us.
Right.
But we're not going to let the 6'6", 230-pounder beat us. And
get him on base.
But Jace has got to, I think he was a little tired toward the end of the week. And that's a lot of games, and he's been asked to do a lot of stuff. And he's, like Coach Schlossnagle said on the radio today, he's not hiding anymore. He is the 4-hole hitter for an SEC West power program. You're not hiding anymore, and you're not a freshman anymore. So getting Jace's feet back underneath him.
They just pulled him out of hiding after Mississippi State. Because that was like 2 days later. He was hitting like home run after.
Well, that was.
I think you're more like. I think it was better pitching. I was arguing this morning because OB was saying that he thought the offense let them down a little in Hoover, which I thought was wild. It's a wild ass take. We shipped him off to Destin after that one, but to me,
I just don't.
To me, I thought the offense was perfectly fine. Sunday, there was some base running errors that cost. But, I mean, the reality is over a 6-game span, the offense, you didn't face everyone's best, but you faced real pitching from regional hosts, top 8 national seeds for an entire week, and you were scoring, 5-6 runs.
How many hits they had yesterday? They had double-digit hits yesterday.
Yeah.
They just couldn't get the big one.
But my point being is I thought that they did all that, like you said, without getting much from Jace and Minnick. Jace with the monster home run against Tennessee, Minnick with the couple hits yesterday. Imagine if those two guys get going. And you expect Jace to, based on his whole season. And I think you're right. I think he got tired and the pitching elevated, and that's not a good combination in terms of timing. But shoot, man.
And it's baseball.
If those two guys get going, I don't care who you put in front of them. And if they pitch 80% of what they were doing in Hoover.
The pitching is what we're talking about here, right? Like I said on radio today, the offense I've been fine with the offense since the Ole Miss series. So that was week 3 of the SEC slate on. I've been fine with the offense.
Yeah.
They've had some days where it wasn't great, but for the most part.
Everybody.
Right.
And that's what.
Right. But the pitching is what turned the corner, is what's changed.
Right.
So if they go up to Stanford, and on Friday night, they pitch the way they have been against Fullerton. And that's another thing we need to talk about.
Yeah,
is who's getting the ball.
How does it shape?
I was going to ask you.
But it's like, if they do those things, then of course you're going to be in every game.
Yeah.
If you pitch that way, you're going to be in the game.
I think our fans and our true like baseball fans know what we're up against here. That's a real regional. I think even though Stanford gives up a bunch of runs, maybe later, like if you play Stanford on Sunday and even if it goes into Monday, then maybe you get to that pitching and you see that Stanford team that gives up a lot of runs, and you got to worry about the flip side of that too. But I think these are going to be contested pitching games. Fullerton, if you win or lose the Saturday game, I think it's going to be high level baseball played, and like you said, a really interesting clash of styles. My question to you is, give me your three. If I'm asking you right now today,
well, a lot of this is going to have to depend on the matchup, right? But it's clear, it's no doubt clear cut that Texas A&M's best options are left-handed.
Yep. Wansing,
no question. But I don't think I would start Troy Wansing against Fullerton, and here's why.
Explain.
So deep into a game, and then back-to-back days, and look, pitchers love their routine. He was out of his routine. You've gotten the best out of him in the last couple of weeks. I'd probably set him to start on Saturday to give him a full recovery. So he's pitched.
So do you go Will Johnson?
I think I'd start the regional with Will Johnston.
And then you go Wansing.
And then
Lampkin.
Sunday
Lampkin.
Lampkin.
So and then Detmer on Monday or Detmer out of the pen.
If you get to Monday, it's Johnny Holstaff.
Is it? But I mean, do you start Detmer?
I could see a scenario where they start Lampkin because they trust Lampkin.
Yeah.
They don't think the moment's going to be too big for him. And again, you're going into a ballpark where it's not raining down on you as a freshman.
Yeah.
I don't know what Cal State Fullerton's offensive numbers look like between right-handers and left-handers.
Yeah.
But Justin Lampkin has got the stuff to beat them. You know how I know that?
Wow.
Because he had the stuff to beat a better offense in South Carolina.
Right.
Yeah. Not just beat him, but completely shut him.
Right. Just cruised. Like he was on cruise control. And it's a lot to ask of a freshman to hand him the ball in game one of a regional on the road. But this kid, and from the get-go, they've said with him going back to the fall, this kid is future ace potential at an SEC program. So would you have handed the ball to Asa Lacy? Would you have handed the ball to John Daxakis?
When they were young,
yeah. So if you would have,
well, I don't have a problem this deep in the year handing it to a freshman. I mean, you'd love to have a junior or senior, out there to start you off, but
what do you do with the right-handers? When do they pitch, and who is it?
At some point, you have to throw them, right? I think Cortez is.
He looked better,
but Cortez has got to be. All right, he's getting two hitters.
Yeah, I think you
it's
can
hitter by
I
hitter
think
with
you
him.
can tell very quickly too with him.
You see his body language. Absolutely, you see it.
It'll melt pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you've got to keep kind of on a hair trigger there with him. I think if he's in the game, but I thought Josh Stewart threw the ball extremely well yesterday.
He did.
And Ty Sexton wasn't great, but it was serviceable. I think he could eat some innings. I don't know what you do with Detmer. I don't know. And the last time that we really said, should he even pitch again, was last year in Omaha, and they ran him back out there, and it was the best performance ever. He's got that in his locker somewhere. It's somewhere in him to have that kind of outing. I just don't know when it's going to come and how. When do you put him in a situation to do that again?
Well, I mean, Schloss did float it out. He's going to have to figure out a different role for him. I mean, he might.
I think he will, and I think that's when he'll test him out again. And like you said, if you do that, he does have the ability to say, okay, this ain't it. Let's go. 2 batters. Same thing you just said for Cortez. Or maybe if it comes down to a final game on Monday, and like you said, Johnny, do you go full staff or whole staff?
Johnny Holstaff.
Whole staff. Is there such thing as a Johnny full staff too? I think I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, but I've heard it more.
You know what Hunter does? If you ever have a business meeting with him, he always brings in.
Dominates the
He's got one of his special guests that comes in called. He'll bring him out of every business, every owner's meeting, every thing with an outside entity we've ever done. At some point, his good friend Joe Bag of Donuts is going to emerge. And I just sit there, and as soon as he says it, I'll just go like this. He'll kind of laugh because he knows this is 20 years in the making where I've never sat down. It doesn't matter if it's us 4 owners. If it's Joe Bag of Donuts will be brought up at some point. So Joe Bag of Donuts, Johnny full staff, Johnny whole staff. I do think, depending on how he's used, I could see him trotting him out there to start a final game as a righty, as a change up to what you've seen, and then see, I'm not saying he would.
Here's why you
see
would
that though.
Here's why
you
you
take
would.
him out in 2 innings.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're going to get out of a guy, start him.
Yeah.
Because if whoever you start isn't good, and then you go to the guy that you're not sure about and he's no good,
Then you're
what
screwed.
happens?
Yeah.
Here's another thing to think about when they start planning for these games. Evan Oschenbeck has been, I wrote this week, argument for team MVP, but at the very minimum, pitching MVP, no question.
Sure.
And Minnick's my Hart Award winner if there was one for baseball.
Oh, what he's done the last 2 years is pretty incredible. But Evan Oschenbeck's success in the SEC has been because a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is because he's different than what they see every week.
Yep.
Is that going to play as well against a Cal State Fullerton or a Stanford? You know, where they haven't seen the elite stuff arms all year.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to trust the guy and you're going to run him out there. But this is a situation where I could see a Shane Sadeo actually being a little bit more effective because the stuff's a little bit better. Now, I'm not trying to belittle what Oschenbeck means to this team or what he's done. It's been Jacob Polish this year. And I fully expect for Oschenbeck to contribute in a big way to multiple games in this regional, especially if your life's on the line. You're going to go down with him on the mound.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But it's just something to watch.
Yeah.
He's different for the SEC. Is he different enough for the Pac-12 and out west?
Change up.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Yeah, good point.
You know, like if they were playing Sam Houston this week,
Mm-hmm.
would Oschenbeck get Sam Houston out at the rate that he gets Arkansas and LSU out?
In
Something to
theory,
think about.
no. But like you
something
said,
to think about.
yeah. In theory, no, he wouldn't. But also, what that guy's shown just in terms of mentality
and just guts, dude.
yeah.
Like he's made
like that strikeout against Cruz the other day.
Like, that's what he's done all year, and
Full
like
count.
it was not at the same level, but reminiscent of what Polish did to what's his name from Texas last year, Ivan Melendez,
Right.
Yeah.
in the College World Series. So like he's got that. It's like guts, and he's not afraid. Evan Oschenbeck ain't afraid to throw it over the plate and see what happens.
That's one of my. There are two at bats in that Texas game that were two of my favorites in recent memory for A&M baseball, and it was Warner, foul it off, foul it off, foul it off, foul it off, lace that hit. You know, it was a 2-run. It was a 2-run hit there, the clutch.
Yeah.
And then that strikeout of Melendez, I forget what the score was, but you were coasting. Maybe it was 7.
I think it was 8-2. They had 2 men
8-2.
on. Yeah.
No, it was bases loaded. I'm almost positive it was bases
yeah.
loaded. Oh, I know it was because
They walked the guy before.
I was watching Texas play with Slosh a few weeks earlier, or it might have even been in a regional, and they pitched to Melendez with the bases loaded, and he may have hit a grand slam. Something happened, and I said, "What would you do there?" And he was like, "I've never done it, and I would seriously, you'd consider walking him." Except who batted behind him? He was like, "He's so damn good too." It wasn't Stelly. It was somebody that was gone.
Lineup, yeah.
But he was like, the dude behind him.
Todd maybe.
But he was like,
that.
I still would. You would have to consider walking him. He goes, I don't know what I would do. And so like 2 weeks later, or a week later, I'm sitting there in Omaha, and I'm watching it play out, and I'm like, dude, this. And sure enough, it happens. And you're up 8-2.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, do you walk? It might have been Murphy that was behind him. You're like, do you walk him? And he didn't. And what a freaking to strike him out like that. And that's how that Oschenbeck against Cruz was pretty significant like that.
So again, the pitching decisions are going to be super interesting. We know what they're going to be up front. Like, it's going to be Lampkin, Johnston, and Wansing to start games. No questions asked.
Yeah,
like
no questions. I mean, I agree, but I'm asking you, like, you think
unless there's some matchup I don't know about where Cal State, Fullerton, or Stanford, they really struggle with high velocity. So you run Cortez out there. But, like, I just don't think
What if they struggle with righties and righties that keep the ball down? I'm not expecting – I'm asking you. I think you're right. Those would have been my guess. You know more about that than me.
That would maybe where you'd see a Detmer start with a quick hook behind it.
Mm-hmm. Like game 3.
2 or 3.
Potentially.
I mean, yeah. What if Stanford's numbers, they're crazy offensive anyway.
Yeah.
But if for some reason they really struggle with guys that throw two seams and sinkers, then that may be this. Okay, we're going to take a shot with Detmer here.
I
And
just
if
think
it's
you have
no
a
good
hard
after,
time not
and
starting
he is
the two guys that threw one hitters.
Right, sure.
And then
Yep.
And
But
then-
everything they do over there is calculated to the nth degree, and you know that. You've gotten to know Schloss.
Mhm.
He's so meticulous in his preparation. So it's so funny to me when you read game threads or people reacting to games. If A&M gets beat because they're shifted, our shifts are never right. You have no idea the numbers they're looking at.
How many times they are right.
Right, and they would not move people to certain places if the numbers.
Analytics didn't say.
They're
It's kind of like
over
Nuño's
80%.
workouts.
Love that. See, that's why we get along so well.
It's like Nuño's workout.
Very efficient,
meticulous.
meticulous.
I like that.
Yeah, you hear Schloss called him out.
Yeah,
today.
what happened? I
That was
missed
funny.
it. He brought it up on radio, and we went.
Yeah, he brought up. Do you remember? I said, hey,
They
you
don't
guys
blow
haven't
leads,
given
yeah.
up a run after the seventh inning. What was it, like 16 straight times? Something. They were like 16 or no after
Yeah.
the seventh
Oh,
inning.
and then Arkansas.
And then and he laughed like, oh, knock on wood. That same
oh,
day,
Mississippi State.
Mississippi
State. That same day, they gave up the lead, and then he brought up to me.
And then
I
it
was
was
thinking about you
Arkansas.
immediately, and I didn't realize when he said it to me because he made a comment, and I was like, what is he talking about? And I looked at Bronny, and our eyes connect, and then it hit like
Arkansas or
No, it was
Arkansas. It was
Mississippi
Arkansas.
Remembered
They
what he
blew the
did
late.
against Mississippi
It was
State.
seventh inning, right, and they blew it open.
Yeah.
And then Vanderbilt, seventh inning or later, they blew it open. So,
and I brought it up.
and I told him, I was like, it's no different than ever you do something wrong as a kid, and you can tell your dad, yeah, I'm sorry, I know I messed up, but you still got to hear it from him.
Yeah.
So he had to take his medicine today.
I did you take it better than when Buzz called Olin sweetheart?
Oh, I
And
think
Olin made it the
I
most
laughed.
awkward thing ever.
I laughed
when
with
Buzz calls
Schloss.
everybody that. And Olin didn't realize it.
Yeah, no, I laughed for Schloss. It was worthy. It was.
I was laughing, and Buzz called Olin sweetheart. And then a couple days later, I'm at the A&M game, and they're doing the video board, and they're all imitating Buzz. And I don't know if it was Andy Garcia or Wade or somebody was like, right, sweetheart, right? And I'm just like, Olin and a couple of the people in the media that like to see anything negative. By the way, if you're listening, and one of two things. If you're a Longhorn that enjoys this, I'm thank you for listening, LSU fan. I had my friend from Ole Miss. She messaged me and was like, they send me everything you say about Kiffin and Ole Miss. I'm like, good. This is recorded. We're
Yeah.
not hiding it. But if you're a fan of another school and you're watching, I actually genuinely appreciate it. I know you do too.
Yeah.
If you're one of these trolls that has a problem with me or Bronny or Nuño's, come by the office. We'd love to meet you. Thank you for listening as well. Take what we say, go run your mouth. It's perfect. But yeah, the people that are on here, that there was one thing. And if you're an Aggie, and you're doing something elsewhere, if you've had a target on our backs for years and years and years, and every opportunity you get on social media to belittle or try to tear down what we've built, what your fellow Aggies have worked very hard to build, and you're hiding your little bitch ass behind a fake username on Twitter, I beg you to come out of the shadows and let us know, and let all your other Aggie friends know exactly who you are, because you have no business. If we don't mention you, if I mention you and I come after you and I talk about you and we spend our time making fun of you or calling you out or whatever, then that's on us. But if I don't mention you, I don't mention who you work for, we don't mention you on our boards, keep our damn name out of your mouth, or at least say who the frick you are. That's all I have to say about that. Because I know you're watching, because you live on our boards, you live listening to our podcast, you read what we write, but you're a little smart ass on Twitter behind a fake handle. And I'm done playing freaking games. Walk through that door whenever you want. Go ahead.
I like that. No. When do you leave?
When do I leave?
Yep.
Oh,
Thursday morning.
leaving.
Thursday morning.
Thursday morning.
Get there
Reports
about
are Thursday.
9:30.
Okay.
And I don't think they've announced a practice time for A&M, but since Billy's sending me out there, I'll try to flood as much content as possible. Player
Awesome.
interviews, videos from practice, all that kind of stuff. So
I may join you. We got the priciest path to
Yeah.
Omaha that's ever been. San Francisco, Miami, if the Ags are fortunate enough to do it. Or who knows? Maybe it's San Francisco and
College
we
Station.
all make the trek across the street. That's in
That'd be
play.
great.
That's in play. I expect.
Let me ask you guys a question, because from you guys sit in a different seat than I do with this baseball stuff. If Texas A&M wins this regional, the MVP will be
if they win. It's tough because I'm thinking two ways here. I'm thinking hitter,
Yeah, I am
pitcher.
Too. Yeah.
can only be one MVP.
Okay.
Nathan Detmer.
Whoa.
Okay.
No,
Okay,
that's fine.
good.
Have your
Maybe-
pick.
maybe he-
you
maybe
might
he-
be right.
If
You're right, then he is.
If he
What
starts,
if you play Monday?
Yes.
What if he relieves early in the series and then you play Monday and winner advance, loser go home, and he does a Notre Dame? He's
Nathan
your
Detmer.
MVP. I'm gonna play it safer here, and I'm gonna go Jack Moss,
That was going to be my pick, but I do have a backup.
Hunter Haas.
Nope.
Is it a pitcher?
Jace.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because
Jace
in altitude in Northern California, with maybe the
what's
pitching,
the altitude out there?
it's
I
right.
don't
What's the
even
name of the mountain range that's up?
Sunken Diamond is what the stadium
Right,
calls
but
it.
there's-
It might be below sea level.
No, I don't think so.
I'm
Is it?
kidding.
I don't know.
No,
There's a bunch of.
it's on the coast, but it's mountains.
It's higher than
yeah.
College Station, I would imagine.
It is.
Look it up, David. What does it
I am
say?
doing that. There you go.
30 feet.
30 feet.
Palo Alto's only 30 feet. Boy,
You
could have fooled me.
You're not playing in
I didn't think it was flat.
what are the mountains there? The freaking Big Bear. They're not in. They're not in. Oh, we're on Big Sur.
Albuquerque or something.
That's why it's called the Sunken Diamond.
Well, I thought it was because it was sunken into like a valley
It's sunken
30 feet.
underground.
or like a between a bunch of mountains.
30 feet.
I mean,
9
it's
meters.
on the Pacific
Okay.
Ocean.
Less to do with the altitude
Okay.
because we've seen Jace hit the ball out in the driving rain and
Anywhere.
heavy air.
Yeah.
But I do think maybe the pitching takes a tick down from what he saw this week. We know, like, go back and think about why they are even in the tournament.
Yeah,
It's because of what he did at Mississippi State that night.
No doubt, no doubt.
And he's gone how many games without taking over again? This kid is, I don't know, Billy, you've watched Aggie baseball, been around longer than I have. When you talk about just raw talent,
Dalen Holt. Not that he has more raw talent than Dalen Holt, but I'm saying
power.
an A&M bat that strikes that much fear.
Will
into
Frizzell's
the
last
opposite.
year, but I'm as a freshman, and you remember that deal
yeah,
you did on
Frizzell.
radio that day where you're like, pick any Aggie athlete you could trade lives with. Like, if you're looking for a young guy on campus, obviously Connor Wigman would be up there, and Evan Stewart and
Wade Taylor,
Wade
way up
Taylor
there.
and some of those guys on the basketball side. Who's the kid that got coming in at track that's running the crazy times? But Jace would be at that list, right? Because just raw baseball talent, there's not been a lot of guys that have come through a really good program that have got it like Jace. So
I'm telling
he
you.
can take over. I'm telling you, I've seen him do it. He can take over
He's done it.
the biggest moments. He can do it. And just where it doesn't matter where you
This
throw
is
it,
your
if he
new
hits it,
A-Chain, isn't it?
if he hits
This
it,
is his new
it's going to
A-Chain.
be a homer. No, it's different because I've known Jay since he was 9.
Yeah, but A-Chain, I give you credit. You were on him.
Well,
Now you got it hand delivered,
Right.
but you have great contacts there.
no, he's not lying. I mean,
No, he has.
I didn't discover Devon A. Chain.
But you
some
get
random
credit.
thing.
You have great. If you're the contact you built, told you about him, and you trusted him because you had a long relationship, and then you got to. I mean, those kind of things. That's what we pay you to do.
yeah.
When
That
you go,
and to talk about baseball.
when you go and you look at Stanford's roster and the Rios kid that was Pac-12 Player of the Year and all the big number guys they've got, they're super talented. I don't know that there's any of them they got that is as talented as Jace. So Jack was going to be my pick.
Mhm.
So, but my 1B would be Jace in a 4-homer weekend where he drives in 12 runs. Like, he can do
Okay,
that.
let me ask you this: if it's a pitcher,
Evan Oschenbeck, that's easy.
see,
I can
would-
see Evan
would go
Oschenbeck.
Wansing, but the way Slosh used him this weekend, if he
You
had a
can't do
start,
that in a regional, though.
why not?
Because you're going to start him, and if you start him game 1, you may get something out of him by
Game 4.
Monday. maybe. But
he started him
Evan
when?
Oschenbeck, we
Yeah, I guess
know
he
he can
did
get
start.
multiple.
He'll get
He
3
started
looks.
him Tuesday and pitched him Saturday was the next time we saw him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but if you can get Evan Oschenbeck into 3 games, he will.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's why on that side, that's who I'd pick. You have a hitter you'd pick?
I was going to say Jace, but you took Jace from me. Let me think. Let's go Brett Minnick. The return of Brett Minnick.
Let me see. Brett Minnick, you go back and watch Max Coffer's single yesterday when he scored.
Yeah.
It's hurting him to run clearly,
Yeah.
but when he has to run,
He's not
he
slow.
can still
Yeah.
run. He just doesn't want to have to run when he doesn't have to.
And Trevor,
Credit
the way
Koff.
Trevor's been playing, my goodness.
Well, I can't believe none of us picked Hunter Haas.
That's what I thought. When I said Jack, I thought you were going to say Hunter Haas.
Yeah.
That's what I forgot your
Team
love affair.
MVP, Hunter Haas.
I forgot
It's hard.
your.
The way Jack's playing, it's tough to say not Jack.
I don't
but
know. I feel like Hunter Haas is your team MVP.
He's been so good at shortstop.
Yeah. He's
As
fine.
good of a defensive shortstop season. I don't think A&M's ever had a shortstop. I think the last one that fielded 980 was maybe Mikey Reynolds in a season.
Really?
But A&M had very few shortstops field at high of a percentage, and he has been awesome. Awesome.
And the percentage is one thing, and then when you watch it,
Yeah.
you know, you could be he has got flair to it too.
And because he's got such good range, he can get to a lot of balls. There are a lot of guys that have good fielding percentages because they can't move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
They
because he
get the
can get to
routine
balls,
stuff. Yeah.
he can get to balls that can be errors and tough plays, and he still makes them.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much.
I'm excited. I think, look, all you can ask for is a chance and a path that you think when you see it kind of fall into place, you think, man, they got a shot to get to Omaha. And there's nothing easy about this regional. It's actually pretty damn difficult. But, I mean, I think all but 2 of them are. And there's nothing easy about a super where you have to go from Palo Alto to literally as far as you can go in this country with a little stopover in College Station, or you're sitting either at home or in Austin. Miami and Texas, both really good. But I don't see an SEC team on the other side of that super. That's one thing. And again, I do think there are tougher regionals than A&M got sent to. I think they won a tougher regional here last year. Now, it was also a better A&M team.
It's
You
brutal.
got a shot.
It's brutal because of the travel and how much time you just spent on the road.
Right.
It's brutal because it's a different brand of baseball out there. But the atmosphere, it won't be like 20,000 people raining down on you every pitch.
Yeah. The other thing about the different brand of baseball, we don't know if that's a positive or a negative.
Right. Well, the closest thing we've seen in conference play is Kentucky, and A&M handled their bunt game pretty well. Now, Kentucky overdid it, but that's kind of the style. If you're looking for a comparison with what we've seen this year, Kentucky is going to be the most – like Stanford is going to be Kentucky with more juice. Cal State Fullerton is going to be Kentucky with less juice.
Right.
And I don't know enough about San Jose State.
Texas State went in there last year, and they were a team that I think during the season could score a lot of runs and really hit. They went in there with that pitcher, and they played that. They were forced maybe, and they played that style of game, and they came within and out of.
Yep.
of
It can be
advancing.
done. If you want to be optimistic, certainly feel that way. If you want to be pessimistic, there's 55 games of reason for you to feel that way too.
Look, there was a bunch of fans, and I might have been one of these people that about 3 weeks ago just thought, all right, we'll get invited to a regional and call it a day. Like that was my feeling, unfortunately.
Well, all we were saying was get in. Just get in.
But they're
I thought
in, and I
get
feel
in
better.
and that lineup would still scare you. That's where I thought get in a perfect world, your pitching's decent for a weekend, and your bats are on fire.
But
Like
you believe
I was
more
like,
now.
nobody wants to see this lineup if Boast and Targach get going. That's where I was. Man, that's a dangerous 3 seed. Nobody wants to see A&M as their 3 seed with that 1 to 9, 1 to 8. Coffer wasn't hitting at the time. That one, nobody wants to see that lineup as a 3. Now we're sitting here as a 2 going, we watched him play at an Omaha level for a solid week against an Omaha field. So, yeah, of course,
They played more.
Everything's changed now.
They played more top 5 teams in the last week than Cal State Fullerton has played all year.
What about Stanford?
I don't know Stanford, but I do know that it's a fact with Cal State Fullerton.
I know there's no Stanford's played 0 top 5 teams as of today. Now I don't know if you mentioned UCLA or
And before we get out of here,
Yes, sir.
he mentioned a guy's name that we haven't talked about. What Max Coffer has done over the last month has been simply sensational.
Yeah.
Called every inning. He took on screen, whenever the fastball from Chris Cortez hit him, on screen it said 99. I talked to a team source today that told me it was actually over 100. It was like 100.7 mile per hour fastball. Hit him on the wrist. Said when Jim Schlossnagle went out there and he asked him, he said, "Yeah, give me a minute. That's going to hurt a little while." And that's all he said. And he went back to catching.
I just love mentioned,
that kid's. That's a tough. And the plays at the plate on the safety squeezes, 2 of them.
Yeah.
Against Arkansas and against LSU, and he hangs in there.
He about broke the Arkansas guy's arm.
He's not getting a bunch of hits, but he's competing in the batter's box.
You mentioned it the other day.
It's like LT Overton. LT Overton at the end of the year was one of A&M's best defensive linemen.
Yeah.
And this is what Max Coffer has turned into, graduating a full year early and being thrust into this.
You said it in one of the game threads. His at-bats have gotten so much better.
Mm-hmm.
You said that about a week ago, and I was watching him throughout this, and right up until yesterday when he gave you a chance to win.
This is a really good thing for this current team. This is also a really good thing for the future of the program. To have Jace Lavalette and Justin Lampkin and Max Coffer and then Caden Kent getting all this experience of not – Caden's not playing as much, but he's in the dugout. Yep. He's an option.
Bronny, this is why, and I know you and I have talked about it off air. This is why, what you're just saying right now is why I wanted to see them win games. Now, in hindsight, if you said, well, they weren't going to win the trophy anyway, I still would have said, maybe fine, and maybe we lose to Arkansas and just say, hey, they've got our number. They beat you 5 times. We all always want to see the maroon and white win when they take the field. But in hindsight, I still think going and beating LSU and Oschenbeck striking out Cruz late and Boast hitting a 3-run bomb late in that game to give you the lead as a guy that had been struggling. Haas. Yeah. Boast hit the Arkansas game tying. But Boast to have that moment. Yeah. Haas to do that after 3 strikeouts. Minnick, you got to play Sunday. Maybe that's why Minnick gets going.
Yeah.
I just think playing that many games against that level of competition and going 4-2 and having a real chance to win all 6 of them. Somebody said, we just faded out there in about the 6th inning against Vandy. I go, you faded out. It was the bottom. It was the top of the 8th or bottom of the 8th.
Yep.
It wasn't the 6th. It was 1 inning to go. You were about to come up. If you could get 1 out, you're about to come up down 1
against a team that had played 18 less innings than you had.
Yep.
Yeah, with a chance to win an SEC title. So I think when you talk about program health and program, just what Slosh can sell and just culture inside that clubhouse, that this past week goes a long
because we're on the verge, no matter if it's this week, next week, or in Omaha, we're on the verge of some big turnover on the roster.
Yeah. All
these names that the Aggie fan base have come to know and love, they're on their way out.
Yep.
And this whole thing's going to turn over, and they're going to need these guys that have played so much to kind of take the reins from a leadership standpoint.
Thank you, Bronny.
Yep.
Thank you, Billy.
Yoda,
Appreciate
go get
you.
To the pool.
Yep.
What are you wearing today to the pool? What's your go-to?
I don't know. They may not be there anymore. It doesn't matter. It's all right. This is fun. We got
You
to watch
missed
some
the
good
UV.
baseball.
He missed all the UV today. It was like 11 to 2.
It's all right. I still got.
Twitter.
Olin left me a pair of the thong. I'll be fine.
We need to get out of here.
Thank you, Academy.